Good afternoon. My name is Shannon Williams, and I am the CEO of the Home Furnishings Association. Today, we are going to be talking about creating a memorable in-store customer experience, and we're going to dive into really looking at the exploring needs of customers, and we're going to talk about some actionable insights and also how to improve in-store shopping experiences. For those of you watching or want to see this later, just a reminder that each webinar is recorded and available on demand at myhfa.org/webinar. If you have any questions at all during this presentation, feel free to use that chat button at the bottom of your screen, and we will try to get to as many of those questions as time allows. And before we jump off, we'd like to thank our educational thought leadership sponsor, Synchrony, who makes it possible for us to continue to bring great information and innovative ideas to home furnishings retail. So before we jump in, I'd like to introduce our panelists today. First, we have Nora Gomez, who is the Chief Marketing Officer Extraordinaire at Nebraska Furniture Mart, who has been leading initiatives across furniture, flooring, appliances, and electronics with customer experience. And her entire background and expertise comes from an extremely extensive career working with organizations like Pier 1, Victoria's Secret, Kids R Us, and many, many more. We have Michelle Adams, who is the president of Marketing Brainology, which is an organization that leverages insights from virtual shopping, advanced analytics, and neuroscience to advise corporate America with brands like PepsiCo on understanding consumer decision-making. And we have Maggie Ellison, the VP at Event Marketing Strategies, which drives experiential campaigns for brands like PepsiCo and P&G, crafting impactful connections with consumers and creating memorable brand experiences through innovative marketing strategies. To say we have a powerhouse of a group today is an understatement. Welcome, everybody, and really excited to get going. So I think it's fair to say that if you've looked back over the last decade, customer expectations around the in-store experience have changed drastically. What kind of trends or changes have you seen? Michelle, can you speak to this first? Oh, we lost your sound, Michelle. While she's getting that sorted out, Maggie, would you mind kicking us off?
Sure. Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind when we talk about trends and changes is definitely digital presence. And I feel like we should be done talking about the pandemic by now, but when we think about consumer behavior, we really can't be done talking about it because it changed the way people work. It changed the way people think. It changed the way people shop. And so much of what we did as consumers during the pandemic translates directly to customers. So what are you doing as a consumer, differently since the start of the pandemic? And that's a great place to start. You think about digital integration, think about pickup options that were never available the way that they are now. So we've changed as consumers because of a lot of digital integration, and that's not just social media, that's mobile app technology, that's using our phones way more than we ever did. You get the notification of like percentage usage. So digital would probably be a quick summation of that and just all of the various strategies that are underneath that.
Great. Michelle, do we have you back?
I think so. Do you hear me?
Yeah. I can hear you now. So in addition to digital presence, what trends or changes have you seen regarding the in-store experience?
I mean, I definitely think they need a motivation. So just like going into any of the stores, we see families going in. It's an experience. It's definitely like, especially in the furniture category. I went into Nebraska Furniture Mart yesterday, and they were definitely families everywhere. So trying it before you buy it, the focus on price and making sure what they get will be exactly what they need. We did just recently asked, as of today, what the focus is, and clear and transparent pricing, which is, I think, the whole value equation is important. So making sure they're going to get the quality they expect, which they can only really get in store by seeing.
Absolutely. I know you got your steps in yesterday. Now, speaking of Nebraska, Nora, what kind of changes have you seen with the customer shopping experience in store?
I think at the core of everything that we're doing, it is, really making sure that we're creating a seamless customer-centric experience. And so anywhere and everywhere the customer wants to purchase, your brand should be prevalent. And we're seeing that and to what Maggie said earlier, it's not just about e-commerce. It's not just about the digital piece of it. If you're looking to build your brand and create your brand awareness out there, what we are seeing is that the customer wants to engage with that brand through every communication channel. And so creating a seamless experience for them, and also making sure that you're blending kind of the physical part of what happens in the store to the virtual part of what happens out in the universe. Whether that's, your website or your mobile apps or your social media. I mean, I know we'll probably talk a little bit more about that, but the immersive technology and kind of blending the art and science of retail has never been more important.
That's fair. We were aggregating some information on the most common praises amongst all furniture mattress store reviews and the most common concerns or customer complaints about their in-store experience. And one of the things you just spoke to about blending the hybrid experience that when you go from going online to in-store, one of the most common complaints was having inaccurate inventory between what's available or showing online and what's in store. Nora, can you talk a little bit about what you've seen and how you've approached that with NFM?
Well, that is an incredibly important part of customer satisfaction. And really what we've been working on as we've been implementing different resources and tools to help us with that is really creating an inventory pool that is common, that captures e-com and the store location. So in other words, we have 4 stores. Rather than having 8 assortments, 8 quote unquote inventory plans, we have 4. So we service everything out of the store inventory. We are working very closely with our e-commerce team and some outside resources to help us with that D2C opportunity. But right now our focus is let's make sure that what we present on our website is in fact available. We have a lot of customers that drive through and pick up in our stores. So they'll buy online and do the drive-through pickup, or have it in the stores when in fact they come in, they do their research online. We have about 80% of our customers, Shannon, that do research online on the nfm.com website, and then they come in store to have that tactile experience. So, being relevant and staying up to date with inventory in stocks is to me is the price of entry. Otherwise, you could lose a customer for life.
Michelle, I know that you guys have been tracing some of the data behind the shopper. Are you guys seeing similar trends with that 80% number? Are you guys seeing similar trends across the industry?
Absolutely. Pretty much every category. Obviously, a low decision, low price point thing like a bag of potato chips, nothing. But other categories, absolutely. They are definitely things like smart home devices. They're well researched. They've looked at reviews. They are looking for those authentic reviews. So they've got their sniffer up to make sure that that's really good, real customer feedback.
So how is that changing the in-store experience? You're coming in with a very well-informed customer. How does that change the shopping experience from, say, a customer 10 years ago who was really relying on the salesperson in front of them?
Yeah, I mean, things like QR codes on display so that they can get that more information. What you'll find is there are different types of shoppers within, and some need that real granular detail in the reviews. But some information can be provided at store, but assume they're going to dig further and allowing them quick ways to go deeper if they want it through things like an interactive QR code that gets them to a brand site or somewhere where they can get what they're looking for.
Thank you. Maggie, can you talk more about what are there some other ways outside of inventory or outside of looking at that experience where they can tap into a QR code? What are some other ways to blend that hybrid journey that customers are on?
Yeah, I think a couple of things based on what Michelle and Nora are saying, that first come to mind as we're talking about just jumping back to digital, that relates to technology too. So one point I wanted to make on what Nora and Michelle backed was just that 80% figure, right? Like they're perusing a website, then they're coming in. Are you tracking that for your various locations? Do you know that statistic and data for your specific retail store? Are you looking at website trends and watching and kind of monitoring how people are impacting there? But I think expectation is a word that comes to mind. Like consumers' expectations are fast, quick, to the point. I want it now, or I'm going to go somewhere else. We live in a real TikTok world, and real REEL, but the real TikTok too. Things need to be fast, they need to be digestible, and they need to be easy to access. The information, you've got a set of researchers, and then they're coming and they're trying it before they're buying it. So is your information accessible to them? Is it easy? Do you have the right sales associates on the floor having authentic conversations with people that are not pushy? And think too about the generations. What are your target generations? That answer to that question may be different based on who specifically you're trying to drive into the store. Is it bite-sized information, or do they need it in the booklet format like we once did?
Yeah. Maggie, I'll build on that because I do find it fascinating on the generations and how they don't want to bother somebody. So imagine, especially coming out of COVID, there's really some people that literally want to get all the information and they don't want to interact with a human. And it tends to be a little bit on the younger age categories. So that option needs to be available to them.
I think it's interesting too, I was reading this article on using social proof as a shopping guide and really, what all of that means. And that literally is, the Gen Z and the younger end of the millennial customer truly be using TikTok as their source of information. Michelle, you were talking about that earlier, whether it's their peers, whether it's influencers. I mean, really relating to the people, normal people, not movie stars, not HGTV stars, but normal people who are using the products that they can relate to. And I think that is in and of itself is, kind of gives the retailer an opportunity to have more lively content, if you will, and more relevant content with people who are actually interacting with the product. So very important part of strategy.
I definitely get that because I just use TikTok, and there was a mechanic who would say these are the top 10 cars, and then I would go to the notes, and that's actually how I selected my car that I just purchased, and I hadn't even test driven it. I trusted the mechanic's feedback, and then looked at the community notes, which I thought was really interesting. So it speaks a lot to your authenticity and what you're saying about that. I do want to circle back here because one of the most common questions in every webinar, and this one is no exception, is the conversation around how do you create a memorable experience based on budget. And I think the conversation we talk about, like an in-store experience, is we think, we hear a lot around the, experiential and tactical installments. We can talk about those later. But what I heard the most was something Maggie said about pushy salespeople. And the number one complaint aggregated in reviews is pushy sales tactics. And the number one praise in those aggregated reviews were helpful and knowledgeable staff. So I really want to take a little bit of time here because there's so many questions about staff and training and staff adoption and, your staff being the face of your company interacting with customer. Can we spend a little bit of time here, Nora? I'll start with you, but can we spend a little bit of time just talking about how important that salesperson is in the in creating a memorable in-store experience?
Well, I want to kind of put it in a box, if you will, and kind of say that it's really that salesperson that has to create the emotional connection with the customer. And if a salesperson, we're all guilty of it. If a salesperson is overbearing, can I help you with anything today? Well, first of all, if you're in a rotten mood, nobody can help you. I mean, that's just a given. But secondly, to have, and most importantly, to be able to have a trained sales team that can kind of gauge where the customer's at. You know, are they coming in? Are they browsers? Are they coming in and going, you know, watching their traffic pattern? Are they going to a specific area in the store? It all very important. Also, helping the customer feel comfortable in the store, comfortable and safe is very paramount and a topic of conversation of late. The to me the customer who feels that they're in a safe environment, not just from you know a crime perspective, if you will, but can I come in and just be myself and walk around? Can I come in and interact as much as I want to, or as less as I need to on this? And taking the education, the highly educated salespeople that we have on our staff to really gauge that where the customer's at in that journey. You know, I go back to the seamless customer experience because ultimately you want to convert a customer. Most importantly, you want that customer to come back. And if your sales team is your first impression, then arming your salespeople with all of the information and tactics is mission critical.
I mean, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna build on that. You know, I have this visual in my head, Michelle, some of what you were just talking about, of people engage in different ways. And I'm sure we all have entered in a Panera Bread or a restaurant, and now, you know, even just self-checkout at grocery stores. I was at Kroger, our retail chain here, and there was not one line that had that was not self-checkout. And so we're moving toward this digital model, right, of self-checkout at grocery stores. We're doing it at restaurants. Is that an experience you're offering to your customers? And the visual that popped in my head is like, take the path to the left for the human experience and take the path to the right for the iPad experience, right? Because that is, Michelle surveyed a much more sophisticated group of individuals than I did. I asked all my young people here at my office, like, how are you shopping these days? And, you know, it's just amazing, the trend, you know, what they're looking for. And TikTok was just mentioned, like, that's what they're using. It's not even the website necessarily. It's TikTok of like, let me just Google this piece of furniture. Let me be, you know, who's feeding this information. But are you offering varying experiences when you talk about pushy salespeople? They may not be pushy whatsoever, but when you're stuck behind a screen all day, that might be what you're most comfortable surfing, even if it is in store. So what opportunities are you offering for people to experience your product without them necessarily even having to have, you know, that human interaction, which kills me to say because I love human interaction, but it's the reality.
It is the reality. And so many times, you know, we have cashiers throughout all of our locations, but honestly, most customers will transact on either directly with a salesperson, and it's a mobile experience. So it's, you know, they're interacting. You can check out right on their iPads that they carry around. It's super easy, very quick, very efficient. Or, you know, buy online and pick up in store is also a very, you know, big service that's being used. But much like we were talking about, you know, meeting the customers where they are, it's the same. You know, if you have excellent customer service and you provide all these different options to make that experience top notch, you're gonna be the retailer that wins. And there, you know, that's just kind of the way it is. You know, winning store experience is going to leave customers coming back for more. So
I'm going to throw a scenario at you. Let's say I'm a small retailer of one store, and my business is based off of a very intentional sales process. There's a pump fake involved, there's a greeting, there's a sales process, there's a closing. But now we're talking about comfort. And my sales process is not about a technology-based process. It's about staying with this person and ensuring that they don't leave without an invoice in their hand. How do you create a comfortable and welcoming environment for that customer?
you have to listen, and not just listen with your ears, but you have to listen with your mind. And really, in as you're listening, there are nuances that you can pick up on. Um, One thing that I truly believe in is don't try to be something that you're not, and make sure that the core values and the core services and the core businesses that got you to the dance are the ones that you stay focused on, and that you can really establish yourself and your expertise with that customer. Um, there's nothing more disconcerting than when you walk into a store and you think everything is out of your reach because you only have a certain dollar amount that you can spend. And I think one of the magical things, whether you're a one store, operation, or whether you're a multi-store operation, is being able to have that engagement for the masses, if you will, and then also for those people who are coming in who may have a little bit higher aspirational budget that they can spend. You have to create that comfort level at all levels, because again, the most important part of customer service is the customer coming back, and it's how you make them feel, Shannon. It's really, when you think about an in-store experience, you're actually creating memories. And so they're going to remember how you made them feel. They're going to remember how you were interacting with them. So that's kind of what I hope I didn't overspeak, but
No, I love that, because I think it really is. We hear it from the customer and the shopper's point of view, but say something, we have some local furniture stores here in Dallas that have been around from the beginning of time. And it's because their mom shopped there. And when they got in, they got some popcorn and a welcome, and there was like a little candy store. So those are powerful memories. And even newer stores can create those, whether it's the warm cookies or something for the kids when they can come, or they can sit in the recliner and try out some of the gadgets. So I saw that last night, is like a lot of interaction of the entire family trying out features on the furniture and making that okay, that they can do that and they can touch the furniture. So those are how memories are made, and their experiences. And it is somebody who knows when to step in and when to back off. And the best salespeople know that. But sometimes it's hard to get all generations going with that skill set, because it is something those longtime salespeople, I feel like we're losing them when they retire. And I don't know if we're going to be ready for the next generation to take over.
There's a few things I'll add on. I love where this is going. So we're talking about families coming together as an experience. We're talking about memories, and no matter the question, emotion comes into play in high price purchase items, particularly from houses to furniture. Furniture can be in that high price category. So how do you tap into that? And you think about the customer experience in that journey, whether you have one store with 500 square feet or, multiple stores across the country or the world. Five senses, right? Michelle just mentioned popcorn, and I started smiling like, who doesn't? I love popcorn, but like, what are you doing? You've got the touch aspect, right? Like, okay, you can that you should be easy, but what's the smell? What's the ambiance? What's your lighting? How are you touching all five, which is challenging, all five senses when you think about the customer and their journey through your store? And that would be a good kind of team brainstorm challenge, I think, for folks on here as a key takeaway. Like, jot down those five senses and write down a few bullet points of like how you're addressing that for the customer within your physical retail footprint. And that's not just within the store. What's the parking situation? What are they doing to get into the physical facility? Because that is all part of the memory, right? I go to pick up, especially with pickup right now. I need that to be quick. I need it to be easy. I either have kids in my car, I'm headed to soccer, I'm headed to take my dog somewhere. So what is that entire journey outside as well as inside?
Can we talk a little bit about that strategy, right? You just talked about let's make it quick, let's make it efficient. What are some ways through the journey process from car back to car that we can think about just getting the business of furniture out of the way so we can have more of the memory of furniture as the forefront? What are some ways that we can like streamline the entire process or checkout process?
I mean, I think those tablets that are right there where they can check out without having to wait online to build on that. Besides clear and transparent pricing, the second highest, very, very important item was convenient and efficient shopping. And the example was not only the store layout, but the checkout process. So I think having that flexibility to do, we want them in the queue and being tempted as they walk to the front register, but at the same time, not everybody's in that same, I have a soccer game, Maggie, right? And I have to be somewhere. So allowing that flexibility, and a lot of retail stores have started moving that way, and people are getting used to it.
I saw it online. I want to go to the store and touch and feel it before I buy it. So now that I have touched and felt and smelled and all of the five senses things that Maggie mentioned, then it's how do I get out of here as fast as possible, right?
Yeah.
And that is the efficiency of the checkout. That's the efficiency of the tablet. That's making sure that, if you're picking up your order in store, that customer pickup has got it ready and prepped when you get in your car and you go and you drive through and pick it up. Or for that matter, if you want to have someone carry it out to your cars or somebody there to help you with that. So I think it's it's thinking like a customer. It's not thinking like the store. And we're all customers, we're all consumers. And so thinking about what matters to you in your experience shopping, I assure you matters to the masses as well. So it's in stock, great selection, making sure you have it. The price is the price that you said it was going to be. And I've got a knowledgeable way of going, a knowledgeable sales associate if needed that can help me navigate, the rest of the experience. If you're getting a delivery, let's talk about that. That is the last touch point that you have with the customer is when that product is delivered and that truck drives away. That experience in and of itself can make or break a customer. And so making sure that the people who are delivering understand that and understand this is their home. You're taking product into their home, making sure you're respectful, making sure you're engaging, but making sure that you're getting that product where it needs to go in their home so that they don't have to worry about it. And then taking all the wrapping and all the packaging with you so they don't have to worry about that too. So when you think about that, it doesn't just end by, giving the receipt to somebody after they've purchased something. If the delivery experience has to be top notch as well.
Going back to something you said earlier, Maggie, about those five senses, can you talk about maybe the different steps that the customer goes through and where you would actually consider what those how do you breathe life into those five senses, if you will? How do you stimulate your customer through touch and taste and smell and in all of these different ways through their experience?
A lot of ways to do that. I don't think that there's one solution for everybody that's going to work. And that goes back to what Nora said about values. And I would say before you do the five senses exercise, which you're all going to do you have established core values as an organization? Because one of the things when I was talking to my team before this call today that I asked was like, how do you choose like where you're going to go purchase this stuff? And aside from looking online or looking on social media platforms before visiting, what we landed back on was, well, it really matters to me what these particular organizations support and what causes they're behind. And that kind of hit me like right here, like, whoa. So when it comes to the five senses and really thinking about that, it's going to vary from location to location. It could vary market by market because maybe this market targets this population and maybe this location that only sells mattresses. So I think that really is going to vary. having some kind of food, something that people can taste, something that people can, and it's a choice, right? Like they can come in and have that. It doesn't have to be popcorn. What's unique to you? What fits within the values of your organization? Are you really focused on sustainability efforts? Is that one of your core value words, is to be sustainable? Well, is the food offering something that you consider in that? Don't give people plastic packaging, So I think you really have to think through what it is that you value as an organization. But the site, like, what are you seeing? What's the noise? What's the sound? Is it piano music? Is it really upbeat, pump up stuff? Think about to Nora's point again, and what Michelle's saying, you as a customer go shopping, right? Like I'm an American Eagle with my little sister, big brothers, big sisters, and this music is playing that's like my music. You know why? Because I'm shopping with her, and that keeps me in the store longer because I'm dancing, I'm singing, I don't want to leave because I'm listening. So what are you playing? So kind of think through that, but it's really got to be specific to you. Michelle, were you going to add something?
Well, we do a lot of sensory research. So we're a neuroscience company also. So we know scent is the most powerful. So like if you had one thing to focus on, obviously sight is important and that visual stimuli, but scent is extremely important. And hotels have figured it out. You guys go in and you know their signature smell. But that's something easy to do, is to use scent as a trigger, and it can be seasonal. We love seasonal. And obviously there's big beauty companies that have nailed that one because they have not only the visuals, but they have that scent when you visit. So I want a beach smell right now, but how do you take us on a journey by seasons even, and make that something that you're not even really consciously aware of that's happening, but it's part of that emotional experience.
Just to give an analogy on that, when I worked for Pier 1, and I know many people on the podcast have probably been in a Pier 1 store, not of late, of course, but walking into that store always had a certain smell. And I remember our CEO at the time challenging our fragrance team to work with fragrance houses to develop the Pier 1 store smell, because people wanted to take that smell home with them. And boy, that was quite a journey to try to capture that. But it was so relevant to that experience, and it was so relevant to the memories about how you made those customers feel. That's what they remembered about their experience. So I can definitely relate to that for sure.
I know all of us in my generation can still taste Abercrombie when we walk through the halls of the mall.
For sure.
So speaking back to these five senses, let's talk a little bit more. I know scent is a big one, but can we talk a little bit more about experientials and personalization in the in-store experience? Maggie, can you talk a little bit more about what ways that retailers can look at more of these just kinesthetic experiences, or ways that they can have more interactive? I know you see that a lot in the mattress world where they have a lot of POP showing foams, but what can a furniture retailer do to help improve experientials as well as maybe even personalize their experience on the floors?
Yeah, personalization, the first thing that comes to mind when I think of personalization as it relates to a brand, two brands come to mind. Starbucks. Why? Because your name is on your cup. And does that make you feel good? If they spell it right, usually it makes you feel good. And then Lululemon comes to mind as well because of what they do on their, they don't say in their dressing room, how many articles of clothing do you have? They say, what is your name? And they put your name on the door. So what are you doing to personalize that customer journey? And someone's name and saying that, there's a lot of data points around that. And Michelle is nodding, so she probably has the data points. I just know there's data points, but saying someone's name makes them feel a certain way. So what are you doing, when it comes to personalization in that space? Thumbs up. And Experiential wise, there's just so many, I mean, there's so many ways I can answer that question. But again, what is that journey through the store, and how are you making it that when they leave, to Nora's point, they want to come back because they felt something.
That's a fair point. I also like that you're speaking to these brands that really changed cultural norms. You know, Starbucks normalized an $8 cup of coffee. Lululemon normalized a $100 pair of leggings. These are things that were not necessarily normal before they came in. And, you know, when I hear retailers talking about, you know, sales are down 8 to 10%, 12%, you know, we're seeing that at that entry price point. We're not seeing that at that mid to high price point. So you're also seeing a shift right now where these retailers that are normalizing not meeting the consumer at the, you know, the $400 sofa or the, you know, $300 mattress, you're seeing them sell into luxury. You're actually seeing sales stabilize and actually increase right now, which I think has been a really interesting conversation to consistently have. Nora, something you mentioned earlier, I know Michelle, you mentioned this too, but we talked about transparent pricing. So can we talk a little bit about that, about how just offering clear and effective pricing strategies helps with your in-store experience?
Absolutely. I think, you know, we at NFM, we use digital tags, right? And so it gives us the opportunity to make sure that we are delivering on a promise that we make to our customers, in that we will have the lowest price on relevant and competitive items always. And we will honor the pricing if we don't. If a customer comes in and says, hey, you know what, so-and-so had this for, you know, $50 less than what you have, then if it's the exact same thing, then we'll honor that price. But I think it's important. Transparent pricing, on the one hand, is that, but it's also, what is your all-in cost, right? So it's not, oh, we're going to sell you this, but then on top of it, you have to have this and this and this in order for it to meet all the expectations. So I think it's being able to say, this is the actual price of what you want to buy. Your delivery cost is X number of dollars, or it's free delivery, depending on what the item is. But being able to tell the story all in to the customer, not just the product price. Or I've also seen retailers where you walk through their store and you know, and they have a cost. It looks like they have a cost on their products, but it's really the first month's payment on their financing, right? And so the customer's like, wow, look at that. There's a $200 sofa right there. I can't refuse that deal. But then they read the fine print, and it's actually a $1,500 sofa, and your payment per month is $200, whatever the financing happens to be. So I think there's a transparency. The customer is very savvy and very smart, especially in these times where the value proposition is so important. And let's face it, there are a lot of us that sell the same things. And being able to say that you're going to have a low price guarantee, you have to be able to back it up every single day.
Yeah. Nora, when we asked just today, 97% said it was very important to have that clear and transparent pricing. It's crazy. And even breaking it by gender, 97% of females said that and 90% of men. So it's very, very, because the dollar's being stretched. So.
Yep, 100%. And who's making the majority of the purchasing decisions?
Women.
Right. Right, exactly. And so that female economics of what we're talking about is, you know,
Yeah.
really, you have to take that into consideration. And if you're not as a retailer, if you're not as a business, and you're trying to cater to non-decision makers, again, that retailer is not gonna be around long at all. The
Right.
female economy is definitely a real thing.
It is, and we sometimes forget to look at our data by that ginger break. But there are some. We know the brains operate very differently. We would expect the buying behavior to operate differently, and it does. And we care about both decision makers or multiple decision makers, because kids can be great influencers also when it comes to what's going to go in the movie room or something, or the game room. But it does matter to break the data. And then there's also psycho, because there is something called a value shopper, and they're usually about 20 to 25% of any customer's base. And that's where you need to be sure they're getting the communication of the deals, because they're going to be triggered off of that. But that doesn't mean everybody in your store needs a deal. And so knowing who your folks that need a deal, restaurants are really, we work with a lot of restaurants right now, and they have that strategy. They'll advertise to the right audience, but it's psychometrics, not just demographic metrics.
The point that you had made about differentiation, Nora, that was probably the most consistent question that came in from people attending today's webinar is, we're all selling the same products. How do I stand out and differentiate myself? Maggie, can you speak to how does a retail store that's selling the similar products or even the same products down the street, how do they stand out from their competitor?
Excellent question. I'm going to go back to values. And do you have them defined? Are you walking the walk and talking the talk? So think about, big box. I think about smaller furniture stores, and what would make me choose between them. It goes back to what I had asked my team. What matters to my team here is they'll look on a website and identify what causes and charities that organization is supporting, and back that kind of company in their purchases. So that values, make sure they're defined, and that will help, I think, with product differentiation to some degree, because you may be carrying the same mattress that the store 5, and a lot of furniture stores tend to be, at least here in Columbus where I am, like next to each other, like go here, pop and go here, test so what makes you different? And I think about what are 3 things that you would say are unique to you and only you. And then when you identify that, you ask yourself, okay, so you're saying that XYZ competitor doesn't have that. That's really important. And it's amazing, it'll take a little bit of time to get to those, and they're different for everyone, but it's really going to come back to who you are as a company. Who's your leadership team? What does your sales team make up? And what do you value?
I will add too, I do think that it comes down to the merchandise could be exactly the same, but the informed and attentive staff, how they make you feel while you're there, and that right balance of being there when you need them, but not hovering and not trying to be pushy. But I think that is a big differentiation. We know it exists in big box stores. We could sit here and name some where the sales team or the checkout clerks are going to be fundamentally different. And Maggie, that goes back to values and how you prioritize within your limited budgets. But I do think for furniture, informed folks, we know that in the car industry, that they are repeat buyers going back to the same salesperson because they trust them. And so building that trusting relationship is how to differentiate, even if your store doesn't have all the bells and whistles of your competitor.
I just to add to that, and it's, making sure, he said, staying true to who you are. It's so much easier to try and be somebody else sometimes than it is to truly hang on to the values that are important to your organization. Whether it's honesty and integrity, whether it's sustainability, whether it's giving back to the community. If you can create that, connection through the experience, you'll have a customer for life. Yeah. And then that next generation will come, and that next generation will come. But I think it's really staying true to who you are, and making sure that those values are really impressed upon the customer, and that you're speaking to them in that way.
Nora, being in Texas, I've been in Texas most of my life, and watching a furniture store emerge that was giant called Nebraska Furniture Mart. And I know it's kind of rebranded now, but if anybody can do it, wow, that was a challenge. But it is, if not for the service and the value proposition, you wouldn't have been able to make it in Texas. Texans are a little less
Oh, for sure. I lived in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for right around 12 years, and moved here to Omaha, Nebraska. And I felt like everybody was my best friend when I moved here. So little different, little different, but certainly adaptable.
Yeah.
So coming back to this conversation we have around being transparent, delivering your customer experience and differentiating yourself based on your values. Imagine I'm a salesperson. I think this is a very common situation for all of the commissioned salespeople out there. There's a price tag on your product, and if the customer leaves, they lose the sale, right? We all believe that be backs. There's some bus full of people that are going to be back. We're not sure when they're arriving, but they're coming. And we want to be transparent with our pricing. However, there's quite a few stores that offer salespeople the ability to discount as needed. And then we also want to ensure that we're not doing pushy sales tactics or trying to do anything to get the sale now. How do retailers get employees involved in creating a really good in-store experience and a consistent experience while still having them have autonomy in a really challenging environment where they're getting paid based off of their production?
That's the $1 million question, Shannon. Literally. Again, it is that sense of engagement. It is that sense of, how does this person make me feel? And, the salespeople and the sales team can convert customers when they're in the store. The customers getting the customers through the door is, to me, the most paramount right now, right? Because there is so much competition, there is so much uncertainty, and not so worried about when they get into the store, but how am I getting them in the store is really, I think, the basis of the foundation of your question. I am very confident that once someone comes into our stores, that very confident in the sales team that they will be able to address all of the things that they need to address to make this customer feel important and transact with us. The competition would tell you that, and it's the exact same thing I'm telling you. It's getting people to come into the store. Most of us are destination retailers, so you've got to give them a reason. Whether that is a price value message, whether that's a new products that are coming in daily that you're communicating to the customer about, hey, this just in, this brand just in, this product just in. I think your question's more upstream than it is in the actual experience of the store.
Michelle, have you seen any? Go ahead, Maggie.
Oh, I was just going to say, not necessarily to that question specifically, but I always think of what brands do things very well, and Apple comes to mind. Apple does not sell phones, they sell communication devices. You're not selling a mattress, you're selling a place for someone to sleep. So thinking in the terms of, we think so much of, okay, how am I going to sell this product? I'm a salesperson, I'm on the floor. What am I going to do to sell this mattress today? What am I going to do to sell this couch? What am I going to do to sell this dresser? Stop thinking like that. Think, you're not selling a dresser, you're selling a storage for something that means something to somebody, clothes, shoes, whatever it might be. You're selling an experience of having a good night's sleep. So when we start to have our salespeople think in the terms of the end result of the product and not the product itself, I think that thinking about that and integrating that into training and thinking about your own experience as a customer, that's part of that journey. And it's, when we talk about engaging associates to be part of this process, I'm a huge fan of brainstorming, whether you're a 1-person store or a 20-person store or larger. Bring your team together, give them lunch, close your store for a day. Let that be really important for you and your team to be on the same page with how you're gonna get your product into people's homes.
That's a really valid point. Some of the most successful top 10 retailers I've heard do not refer to themselves as furniture companies. They refer to themselves as technology companies, financing companies, honesty companies. When I think of fast food, I think of like Chick-fil-A, who is a customer service company that sells chicken, which is such a differentiator. When I drive down my streets of South Carolina and see 10 of the same product being sold by 10 different competitors, it's such a valid point. Michelle, you were going to say something.
I just think also it's about creating imagination so that the salespeople don't have to do all the work. So like literally I can, if I was having a baby, at this point it would be a grandbaby, but I would have a vignette, like the room is created for me. So that's one thing that the best solving a big problem that I have, which is I have this new house or I have a new room that I need to fill with furniture. And that's where you create an imagination for me, whether it's done virtually. That was one thing that rose up to the top, is that you create a showroom for me that lets me imagine how this will look in my house. And there is a way to do it with technology, but there's also a way to do it just through displays. So we do a lot of research on displays, whether it's displays at Walmart or in a furniture store, and it does matter. And I know sometimes they get dismissed as not as important, but I know, Nora, you probably have some data. Once you touch something and you start interacting with it, once you get them in, the likelihood that they will buy is way, way higher once they've touched.
Agree wholeheartedly. And you have to remember, you're improving that person, that customer's lifestyle. You're solving a problem. You're creating the home of their dreams. You're giving them the most comfortable sleep that they could ever have. You're improving their lifestyle. And if we go back, I go back to the very beginning when we were talking about experience, and Maggie, you touched on that. From the very beginning of the experience, everything that you do should begin and end with the customer. Every decision you make, every product you select, every experience you create in the store, every color you think that's important, you have to always view it through the consumer, the customer's eyes. And if you take it back to the basics, we want to overthink things. We want AI to do this, that, and the other thing for us. And we want all this data, to tell us what to do. But if it goes back to the heart of the matter, it's you're there for the customer. You're there to improve their lifestyle.
Now we're talking about the art and science. And
I
think it's a really valid point, though, because a lot of what we're talking about is differentiation. And I think that there's really two major strategies. You're either using data to guide conceptual ideas, or you're using conceptual ideas and validating or verifying with data. And so they're two very different approaches that need each other for that balance. Before we just, we're coming up on, five or so more minutes. I do want to just touch in on merchandising, just because one of the top complaints and one of the top praises is cluttered displays and well-organized, inviting stores. Can we pop in, Nora? I know you were an extraordinaire of merchandising. This is your zone of genius. Can you talk about how to create a memorable experience through merchandising?
Zone of genius, Shannon. I don't know if anyone's ever said that to me before, so thank you for that. It is appealing to all of the senses, like we were talking about before. How do I make it easy? How do I make it easy for the customer, right? So I'll give you an example. We have a new lifestyle brand that we launched, and it's 37B, not a PSA for 37B, but it's more, I use it because what we did was something that we hadn't done before, and we created environments through lifestyle. And we created this area that this particular customer that we're trying to reach, which is basically millennial and Gen Z, we carved out their own space so they could have their own experience. And it wasn't the experience of, going in, and because my mother shopped at the mart, and it was, no, we have to be able to cater and create the sensory experience for this younger demographic. But anything can be, put together in a way that services senses. So color becomes extremely important. Texture speaks to a different sense. How easy, if I take one away, does it still look as good? There's always this rule of three. And I kind of like the, obviously with my background, for me, it's more is more. I love being surrounded with things, but it's helping people have the flexibility, but also being able to lead them through a sensory experience they don't even realize that they're having. So how do you make it easy for them? If it's color palette, work through color. It's a universal language. Everyone can understand that. If it's lifestyle and you're trying to bring lifestyle together, make sure that you're true to that aesthetic, but always allow for that personalization. We talked about that earlier. Always allow for the personalization of the person to say, okay, I get it. It's 50 shades of green right now, but I really love purple. How do I make purple work?
Yeah.
In green and still be relevant. So again, think back to the customer, think back to the customer journey. What do they need? How much do they need? And speak to their senses.
And Nora, there was a particular display that really stood out, and I took a lot of pictures because I just loved it. It was meant to be interactive. It had a spot. It was like a circus bedroom scene.
Yes, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And it allowed you to take a picture with your kid peeking through, which who doesn't do that on a road trip? At some small little place where you take your picture and your kids. So it allowed a destination to get them upstairs to that space. And I thought that was really well done. And it was so over the top. Nobody's bedroom probably will ever look like that, but it was a destination within the back of the store.
Thank you.
And I'll just add, to merchandising, Michelle used the word vignette, and Nora was just talking about kind of creating these experiences based on, the target population that may enjoy that particular type of room setup. And I would just encourage everybody to think beyond the store walls. When I think of vignette, we actually did a campaign for a furniture store client where we took a vignette outside of the store to an outdoor setup and created and used an event as a way to drive people to the store. But, we created that experience in a different setting that people were not expecting. And of course, they're going to sit on the furniture, and of course, they're going to interact, and in that interaction. And then also, too, thinking about, strategies, and I know we're wrapping up here. What events are in your towns, small or large, that you might be able to partner with? We worked here with our the Ohio State Fair, one of the largest fairs in the country. We had a furniture partner come on board talking about vignettes. They custom designed various rooms on our entire fairgrounds, from the concert venue to seating areas for the public, and that was branded with them. What a great way to get marketing opportunities out there to drive people to retail, because they're experiencing your product in places that they would have never expected it. So just something fun to think about is taking your store outside of your store.
Thanks for that, Maggie. So we're going to wrap this up. The highlights that I heard out of today's session were that know who you are and don't try to be who you're not. Get your customer comfortable. Engage all of their 5 senses from the parking lot to delivery. Get creative and look at the balance between not just data, but also the art of furniture design. I really appreciate you guys all joining me today. Nora, Michelle, Maggie, thank you all so much. Please, you're able to find this on the website at www.myhfa.org/webinars. Again, we'd like to thank our our educational thought leadership sponsor, Synchrony, for helping us get there. Thank you guys for all this applause. This is great. Keep them coming. I want to thank you guys all today for your time, your expertise, and I wish everyone a great rest of your week and a great weekend.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
Everybody, bye-bye.